I can still picture exactly what I had on when Dimitri slammed that report down. That dumb dark green cardigan with the old coffee stain on the sleeve that I kept telling myself I'd take to the dry cleaner. My hair was shoved into a messy bun because the shower in my apartment had been freezing again that morning, third time that week, and I didn't have the time or patience to wash it. I'd been at the office since 5:30 a.m., trying to clean up someone else's coding catastrophe before the client presentation at 11. Dimitri didn't knock. He just stormed into the cramped conference room where I was troubleshooting, flung the report onto the table like he was dealing cards, and said the words that still rattle around in my mind almost a year later. "Congrats, Ardon. You're one of the fortunate ones." Fortunate. That's the word he chose. The fluorescent lights made the paper glow bluish-white. A spreadsheet filled with names marked in yellow, names of colleagues I'd worked beside for years, friends, people with mortgages, kids, medical expenses, people honestly more skilled than me, teams slashed by 30%. "Effective immediately," he said, not even glancing at me, just scrolling on his phone. "I need you to take over Trisha's entire client load, all of Ian's back-end upkeep, and handle Sonia's reporting procedures." I sat there staring at the sheet, hunting for Trisha's name. There it was, highlighted. Ian's too. Sonia's. All gone in an instant. 3 people I admired. 3 people who taught me nearly everything. That's 3 people's work," I finally managed to say. My voice sounded different, distant. That's when he actually looked up from his phone, irritated, like I was intentionally being slow. "Yeah. And you should feel lucky. Half the department would kill to be where you are." "Grateful for what?" "The honor of doing unpaid overtime until I burned out." "Either you handle the transition or you can join them," he said, nodding toward the highlighted names. "Your call. I need your decision by end of day." And he walked out just like that. Didn't even bother closing the door behind him. I'm Ardan, by the way. I was 29 when all of this happened. Senior data engineer at a place I'll call Luminina Systems, one of those tech companies that advertises itself as a family in job posts but treats employees like replaceable components. I'd been there 4 years, which basically made me ancient in startup time. Before I dive deeper into this, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're tuning in from. Because honestly, this whole story still feels like some fever dream, and seeing your comments reminds me I'm not insane for what I did. So there I was, staring at this lineup of names, people I'd eaten lunch with, whose kids' birthday parties I'd shown up to, whose work crises I'd helped solve at 11 p.m. on some random Tuesday, because that's what teammates do. All gone. And I was expected to just swallow their workload like they never mattered. I should explain a bit about Dimitri. He wasn't always like this. When I first joined Lumina, he was just another engineer, skilled, but nothing extraordinary. We were actually sort of friends. We'd grab beers sometimes after work, gripe about management. He'd talk about his girlfriend, how they were saving for a house, everyday stuff. Then he got promoted, first to team lead, then department head, after our old boss left. And something shifted. It was like watching someone put on a mask and then forget they had it on. Suddenly, he was obsessed with optimization and resource allocation and achieving more with fewer people. Corporate code for squeezing staff until they crack. The truth is, I understood the business situation. The company had lost a major client. Investors were anxious. Cuts had to happen. But the way he handled it, the absolute absence of compassion, wasn't business. It was something colder. I sat in that conference room for who knows how long, 10 minutes, maybe an hour. The client demo came and went. I sent an email delaying it, citing technical issues. No one questioned it. I just kept staring at those highlighted names, feeling this tight, crushing weight growing in my chest. I finally stepped out of the conference room around 2 p.m. The office felt different. Half-empty desks, people whispering, Someone crying in the bathroom. I could hear it through the thin cubicle walls. A few coworkers glanced at me as I walked by, their eyes a mix of pity and relief. They knew who had been cut. They knew who had been spared. I tried to work that afternoon, but my thoughts wouldn't stay still. I kept thinking about Trisha, who'd stayed late countless evenings teaching me how to navigate the client management system. Them when I first joined. Sonia, who brought homemade tamales to the office every Christmas. Who had a son with special needs she was putting through private schooling. Ian, quiet and brilliant. The one who once resolved a critical server failure from his phone while attending his sister's wedding. All gone, and somehow I was supposed to take on all their responsibilities, plus my own. Around 4:30, Dimitri messaged me. Need your answer by 5. No greeting, no explanation, just a deadline. I typed and erased maybe 20 replies. Everything from I quit to I'll do it to several creative combinations of words I definitely can't say on YouTube, but none of them felt right. Eventually, I walked to his office. He was mid-call, but motioned me in anyway, still talking about quarterly projections like this was just any average Thursday. When he hung up, he didn't even meet my eyes, just said, "So, what's it going to be?" I was worn down. I'd been running on caffeine and anxiety for weeks. My apartment was chaos. I couldn't remember the last time I'd phoned my mom. The idea of taking on 3 more people's workload made me feel physically sick. I need the weekend, I said softly, to figure out how to handle this. He looked irritated, but nodded. Fine, but I want a transition plan on my desk Monday morning. 9 a.m. on the dot. I nodded and left. As I reached the door, he called out, "And Ardon, don't let me down. You're not irreplaceable." That was the moment. Something inside me just cracked. You know that sensation when you've been forcing yourself to hold everything together for so long that you forget what it feels like to be whole? That was me. I'd been bending myself into whatever shape Lumina needed for 4 years. Canceling vacations for crunch deadlines. Missing my cousin's wedding for a product rollout. Answering emails at 3 a.m. because the offshore team had questions. And for what? So Dimitri could tell me I wasn't irreplaceable. I walked to my car in a haze. It was raining. Of course it was raining. And I'd forgotten my umbrella. By the time I made it to the parking garage, my cardigan was drenched and my mascara was streaking down my cheeks. I sat in my car for a long time, not even starting the engine, just listening to the rain hitting the roof and feeling this strange calm settle over me. I wasn't going to do this anymore. But I wasn't just going to walk away either. That would be too easy, too expected. No, I was going to show Dimitri exactly what irreplaceable truly meant. I drove home in a kind of fog, this idea taking shape in my mind. It wasn't even a plan at first, more like a feeling, an inevitability. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, though, it had solidified into something sharp and clear and flawless. My roommate V was home when I stepped inside, sitting on our thrift store couch with her laptop, working on her dissertation. She took one look at me, soaking wet, mascara streaked, this unsettling smile on my face, and asked, "Oh, what happened?" So, I told her, every bit of it. The layoffs, the impossible workload, Dimitri's smug expression, him telling me I wasn't irreplaceable. When I finished, she shut her laptop and just stared. "So, what are you going to do?" I laughed, this strange, unfamiliar laugh that didn't sound like me at all. "I'm going to make him regret ever saying that to me." "How?" she asked. And that's when I laid it all out. The entire plan spilled out of me fully formed, like it had been waiting there the whole time for me to finally give it space. As I talked, V's face shifted from worry to shock, to this slow, growing grin. When I was done, she said, "That's either the smartest or the craziest thing I've ever heard. Maybe both." I said, "You could lose everything," she warned. I looked around our tiny apartment at the IKEA furniture, the water stain on the ceiling, the pile of overdue notices on the counter. What exactly would I be losing? She didn't have an answer. I spent the entire weekend preparing. I barely slept. I'm not sure I ate anything except microwave ramen and those little clementines V always keeps in the fridge. I was driven, focused in a way I hadn't felt in years. By Sunday night, everything was set. I had 2 envelopes in my bag, both sealed. I'd ironed my best blouse, the deep blue one that always made me feel strong. I'd even gone out to grab a proper coffee to go with the stained cardigan. Monday morning, I arrived at the office at 8:30. The place was eerily quiet, still reeling from Friday's bloodbath. Empty desks everywhere. Those who remained were hunched over keyboards, trying to appear busy, trying to look valuable, trying to seem irreplaceable. I walked straight to Dimitri's office. He wasn't there yet. He never arrived before 9. Another one of those little perks he claimed with his promotion. I left one of the envelopes on his chair where he couldn't possibly miss it. Then I went to my desk and waited. At 9:05, I heard him arrive, heard him talking loudly on the phone as he walked to his office. Something about quarterly projections again. There was a pause in the conversation. He must have seen the envelope. At 9:07, he stormed out of his office, face flushed, eyes wild, scanning the room for me. When he spotted me calmly sipping my coffee at my desk, he charged over. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, waving the paper from the envelope. Everyone in the open office looked up. "Exactly what I wanted." I said loud enough for the whole floor to hear, "This is my assessment of the workload you assigned me on Friday." He leaned in, lowering his voice. "This says it would take 3 full-time employees to handle it. That's why we had 3 people before." "Exactly," I said, still projecting my voice. "It's physically impossible for one person to do all of it, no matter how efficiently they work." "Lower your voice," he hissed. I stood up instead. "Might as well give everyone a full view." "You asked me for a transition plan," I said. "This is my professional assessment. The work you assigned requires 3 full-time employees. If you disagree, I welcome your detailed analysis, explaining how one person can simultaneously manage 27 client accounts, maintain 6 legacy systems, and produce daily reports that each take 4 hours to compile on average." His face grew redder. People were openly staring now. Some had even pulled out their phones. I wondered if I was about to go viral on TikTok. "My office now," he growled. I grabbed my bag with the second envelope inside and followed him. He slammed the door behind us. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "My job," I said simply. "You asked me to figure out how to make this work. I'm telling you it doesn't work. If you can't handle it, no one can handle it," I interrupted. "That's the point. You're not cutting staff to improve efficiency. You're cutting staff because you promised the board the same results with fewer people, and now you're trying to force us to make your bad math work." He looked like I'd slapped him, because I was right, and he knew it. "You have no idea what pressures I'm under," he started. "Actually, I do," I said, "because unlike you, I still listen to people in this company. I know about the board's ultimatum. I know the acquisition talks fell through. I know you were told to cut headcount by 20% and you pushed it to 30% to impress them." His eyes widened slightly. I'd caught him off guard. "Good. How did you—" "People talk to me, Dimitri. They always have. I'm the one who listens when they worry about jobs or stress over deadlines. I'm the one who stays late helping fix issues. Not because it's my job, but because that's what teammates do." He scoffed. "And what has all that listening gotten you? You're still just a senior engineer. I'm your boss." "For now," I said quietly. That's when I reached into my bag and pulled out the second envelope. I handed it to him. Unlike the first, which just had his name scrolled across it, this one said Board of Directors Luminina Systems neatly typed on the front. "What is this?" he asked, flipping it over in his hands. "Open it." He hesitated, then tore it open. Inside was a 3-page, single-spaced letter. I'd spent most of Saturday writing it, revising it, making sure every word was precise. I watched his face as he read, watched the color drain paragraph by paragraph. Because what I'd written wasn't a resignation letter. It was much, much worse. It was a full analysis of every mistake Dmitri had made since becoming department head. Every corner he cut, every project deadline he missed and tried to cover, every client complaint he buried. All carefully documented with dates, screenshots, and witness accounts. All collected over months without him noticing. See, the thing about being the person everyone confides in is that you hear everything. And I mean everything. The client who threatened to leave after Dmitri promised features we couldn't deliver. The security flaw he'd labeled low priority, even though it exposed user data. The junior developer he'd blamed for his own coding mistake, who quit in tears. I'd kept records of all of it. Not because I planned to use them someday. I'm not that cold. I kept them because documenting things was how I processed the increasingly toxic environment. It was my therapy, my way of reminding myself I wasn't losing my mind. But now, those notes had become a weapon. When he reached the last page, he looked up, pale. "You can't send this to the board." "I already did," I said calmly. "At 8:45 this morning. They should be reading it right now." He slumped into his chair, the letter slipping from his hands. "Why would you do this?" That's when I set my actual resignation letter on his desk. "Because I quit." His eyes darted between the resignation letter and me. "You what?" "I quit," I repeated, effective immediately. But don't worry, I've documented all my processes, created training materials, written handover notes for whoever takes over my projects. Unlike you, I don't leave people in the lurch. You can't just, I can, I am. I took a deep breath. Oh, and I should mention Trisha, Ian, and Sonia have all accepted positions at Helix Tech. I referred them last month after hearing rumors about the layoffs. They start next week. His jaw literally dropped. Helix was our biggest competitor. But here's the real kicker, Dmitri, I continued, feeling this strange, almost euphoric calm. I've accepted a position there too, as department director. I wish I could properly describe his expression. It was like watching someone solve a complicated equation live, connecting dots, realizing implications, calculating losses. "You're going to poach our clients," he said finally. I shrugged. "Some will follow us." "Sure. Clients go where the people they trust are, but that's business, right? Resource allocation. Optimization." He sprang up suddenly, knocking his chair back. "This is corporate espionage. I'll sue you. I'll sue all of you." I actually laughed. "No, you won't. That would mean explaining to the board why your entire senior engineering team left for a competitor. It would mean discovery, where every one of your mistakes becomes a legal record. Depositions from every employee who's ever felt mistreated under your leadership." I leaned forward. "Do you really want to go down that road?" He didn't respond. "Couldn't." "I thought not," I said, standing. "Now I've got a meeting with HR to process my exit. If you'll excuse me." I was almost to the door when he spoke again, his voice small, strange. "I thought we were friends once." I turned back. He looked different somehow. Smaller, younger, almost like the Dmitri I'd known before promotions changed him. "We were," I said quietly. "That's what makes this so disappointing." I walked out of his office, past the curious stares of my soon-to-be former colleagues, straight to HR. The exit interview was brief. I'd already handed in my laptop, badge, and company credit card. Nothing left to surrender. As I left the building for the last time, my phone buzzed. A text from Trisha. "Did you do it?" I replied simply, "Yes." 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, "Holy, you actually did it. Drinks tonight? Bring V." I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years, and typed, "Absolutely." Now I'd love to tell you that what happened next was cinematic justice, that Dmitri was fired on the spot, that the board apologized to everyone laid off, that Lumina imploded while Helix thrived. Reality is messier. Dmitri wasn't fired, at least not immediately. The board issued a statement about reviewing management practices and launched an investigation. But 3 months later, his LinkedIn quietly changed to seeking new opportunities. I heard through the grapevine he was given the choice to resign or be terminated. He chose the former. Not all clients followed us to Helix. Some did, the ones who worked directly with me, Trisha, Ian, or Sonia. But others stayed with Lumina out of inertia or contractual obligations. Business rarely moves like revenge fantasies promise. As for me, my role at Helix wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Being a department director meant longer hours, more stress, and difficult decisions of my own. There were days I questioned whether I'd made the right choice, whether I'd become what I once hated. But there was one crucial difference: respect. I built my team on it. We worked hard, but sustainably. When someone was overwhelmed, we redistributed the workload. When mistakes happened, we fixed them together instead of hunting for someone to blame. We celebrated wins collectively and weathered losses the same way. 6 months after I left, Lumina had another round of layoffs, 40% this time. A year later, they were acquired by a larger company and essentially gutted. Most of the people I'd known there scattered to other companies. Some reached out for referrals, some didn't. Life moved on. V finished her dissertation and relocated to Montreal for a postdoc position. We still FaceTime every Sunday. I finally bought a condo. Nothing fancy, but the shower always has hot water and there are no ceiling stains. I adopted a cat named Professor, who silently judges me whenever I work late. I ran into Dmitri once, about 18 months after everything unfolded, at a coffee shop near the old Lumina office. He was ahead of me in line, and for a moment I thought about slipping away before he saw me. But then he turned, coffee in hand, and there we were. He looked different, tired, beard a little scruffier. But when he saw me, something in his expression shifted. Not anger, not resentment, but something more complicated. "Ardon," he said, nodding slightly. "Dmitri," I replied. An awkward pause. Then I heard, "Helix is doing well." "It is," I said. "We just closed Series C funding." He nodded again. "Good. That's good." Another pause. The barista called my name for my order. As I reached for my coffee, Dmitri said, "You know, I think about that day a lot." I looked at him, really looked at him. "So do I. I was wrong," he said simply, "about a lot of things. I wasn't expecting that." An apology from Dmitri was like seeing a unicorn in the wild. Theoretically possible, but statistically improbable. "Yes," I agreed. "You were." He almost smiled at that. Still direct, as always. Some things never change. He shifted his weight, gripping his coffee cup a little too tightly. "I'm consulting now, helping startups avoid the mistakes I made. That's surprisingly self-aware. Public humiliation will do that to someone." There was no bitterness in his tone, just a statement of fact. I nodded, unsure what else to say. We'd run out of small talk, but it felt like something important hung in the air, unresolved. "Finally," he said, "I should go. It was good to see you, Ardon." "You too," I said, surprised to realize I meant it. As he turned to leave, I called after him. "Dmitri." He looked back. "I hope you find what you're looking for." A small, genuine smile this time. "I think I'm getting there." And then he was gone. I stood there for a moment, coffee cooling in my hand, feeling strangely unsettled. Not bad, more like the relief you feel after putting down a heavy backpack you've been carrying for miles. Relief mixed with the phantom weight you thought you'd never drop. Because here's the truth I didn't expect. Revenge doesn't feel like you imagine. In movies, it's triumphant, cathartic. Everything resolves, Justice is served, credits roll while you walk away in slow motion. Real revenge is messier. It changes you. Even when you're right, especially when you're right, there's a hollow space afterward where all that anger and purpose used to live. You have to fill it with something else, or you just become another version of the person who wronged you. I'm still figuring out what to fill it with. Some days it's mentoring junior engineers. Some days it's building something new and exciting at Helix. Some days it's just sitting on my balcony with Professor, watching the sunset, remembering to breathe. I don't regret what I did. Not for a second. Dimitri needed consequences. The team deserved better. I deserved better. But I've learned the best revenge isn't destruction, it's creation, building something better from the ashes of what was burned down. So that's my story. Not a neat moral lesson. Not a triumphant anthem of girl boss energy. Just life. Messy, complicated, ongoing. If you've stuck with me this long, thank you. Really, it feels good to finally tell this story, to put it out into the world and let it exist. If anything here resonated with you, if you're in a toxic workplace, being asked to do the impossible, wondering if you're crazy for feeling undervalued, you're not alone. You're never alone. Like this video if it spoke to you. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. I've got plenty, believe me. And leave a comment telling me about a time you stood up for yourself, or didn't but wish you had. No judgment here. We're all just figuring it out as we go. Until next time, this is Ardon reminding you that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is no, and sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away.